Okay, we're going to move to file item 2. Assemblymember Harbidian, please come forward with AB 1642 relating to wildfires.
Oh, well, thank you. That's exactly how I want to start. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll wait for the second. That's fine. We'll testify first. We'll testify first. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, first of all, to the staff for the very thorough staff report. It brought me back to a little PTSD high school chemistry, which wasn't a very strong class for me, and it also just made me realize I'm not smart enough to be on this committee. But it was great, and I've talked to all of you about this bill. Bills are like children; you never want to pick your favorite. But I'm not sure I have a more important bill that I've ever run or that I will run, and that's because of what our community has gone through with the Eden fire. Many residents have gone through a lot trying to get back into their homes, and what we're finding out is during that struggle and through that struggle, folks are being forced to move back into homes with serious smoke damage, where post-remediation there's still high levels of contaminants, lead, ash, and other contaminants that you'll find in urban wildfire. And the issue is and what's become painfully clear is that there are no scientific standards in the state of California, despite the many urban wildfires that we've seen, to determine what is safe and what conditions should individuals dealing with urban wildfire, what is safe for them to move back into their homes, their workplace, and their schools. And there have been articles written by the New York Times and a number of different publications that have documented this, that individuals who have had remediation done have moved back into their homes, testing has been done, and lead and asbestos have been upwards of 60 times the rate that are safe for humans to live in. And the problem is that there's no certainty. There's no test or standard to point to say that this is the objective truth. And so what AB 1642 does is really just two elegant, simple things. It's what contaminants do we test for after a WUI, wildfire, wildland-urban interface wildfire, and two, what contamination levels are safe for an individual to move back into their home, workplace, or school. And what we want is experts, scientists actually making those determinations, full stop. And that's why we are here presenting this bill, and we are asking DTSC, Department of Toxic Substances Control, along with OEHHA, to develop these standards. And luckily, because of thousands of scientific studies that have been conducted, we know the safe levels for lead and asbestos. And so we want emergency rulemaking to actually establish that into law. But then we also are asking the departments and the offices to develop other standards for other contaminants that are found in urban wildfires. With me today, I've talked too long. I have a Caltech professor here who really should be doing most of the talking, but from Caltech is Dr. Francois Tissot, who's going to provide some testimony, and Jainlan Patel, who is a member of the Eden Fire Residents United, who has been instrumental in this bill. So I will kick it to them for further testimony.
Thank you. My name is Francois Tissot. I'm a professor of geochemistry at Caltech, where my research group uses specialized instruments to measure the concentration of elements in samples. I'm also an Eaton fire survivor. After the fire, I found very little information to assess the risk of returning to potentially contaminated homes. My lab and I therefore started working on this problem. We have studied the composition of dust found inside homes and structures. We have measured the concentration of most metals, including lead. Our results reveal high levels of heavy metals, particularly lead, in the dust collected in standing homes in Altadena, but also much further than expected, several miles downwind of the burn area. Contamination was highest near entry points, up to 30 times the EPA limit, and about 10% of the clean surfaces were still above the EPA limit. An overabundance of evidence from thousands of studies shows that lead exposure has dramatic health effects, especially on children. At high levels, exposure is lethal. At lower levels, it results in impaired cognitive development, skeletal issues, cardiovascular issues as well. We've also observed elevated amounts of other heavy metals, such as antimony, zinc, cadmium, chromium, or arsenic in the burn area and downwind. Each of these have their own impact on the human body. Arsenic is a potent carcinogenic agent. Cadmium causes damages to the kidney, the lungs, and the bones. The research shows that we have a major gap in the risk assessment and remediation of the smoke damage by WUI fires and urban fires. First, we lack established standards for clearance for many of the toxic contaminants that are released by the fire. Second, even for lead and asbestos, which have clearly established clearance guidelines, the Eaton fire has revealed a lack of clarity over when testing should be required. These issues have endangered the local community and highlight the need for a clear, science-based response protocol following WUI and urban fires where the fire fuel contains toxic materials. AB 1642 provides such a framework, and I respectfully urge an aye vote.
Thank you. My name is Jane Lawton Potel. I am a founder and executive director of Eaton Fire Residents United, and I am an Eaton Fire survivor. We didn't start EFRU as advocates. We started it because we needed to find out what was in the ash covering our yards and our homes, our schools, our parks, and our community spaces. And we needed to know how to return home safely. We're here on behalf of thousands of residents whose homes are still standing, but are full of dangerous, poisonous contaminants left over from the fire. One of our neighbors, Billy Malone, saved his home just yards away from the burn scar, but it suffered severe smoke damage. Billy had a remediation company come to his home to do cleanup and followed up with testing. After finding lead, the remediation company returned and did another round of cleanup. But once again, after testing, they found lead. Billy's wife, Nina, is disabled, and the smoke and debris in their home is making her illness worse. But instead of ensuring remediation was completed successfully, his insurance company says they're done paying for anything. Now Billy and Nina are trying to clean their home by themselves while living there and ingesting contaminants every day. We've heard countless stories just like Billy and Nina. Families are being financially forced back into homes that have never been properly tested or remediated. Children are sleeping in rooms that have not been cleared. Insurance carriers stall on approving testing and cleanup, while temporary housing coverage quietly depletes. By the time families need it most, it is all gone. And by then, we have nowhere else to go. Without a standard for when it's safe to return to a home covered in WUI fire ash, every home safety assessment is a negotiation, not a scientific determination. That is why our core campaign is clearance before occupancy. A home must be tested and cleared before any family is required to return to it. We were promised we would be able to return home safely. AB 1642 is the best way to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional witnesses in support? If so, come on up.
Stone advocacy on behalf of Consumer Watchdog in enthusiastic support.
Hi, Dawn Fanning. I'm with Eaton Fire Residents United, and I'm here on behalf of over 80 organizations, over 600 individuals, signed on to this. I'm specifically Churla, Endalon, I can't even read because of my tears, Public Council, End Child Poverty of California, Indivisible, Natural Resource Defense Council, NRDC, and Physicians for Social Responsibility. So thank you. We urge an aye.
Hi, everyone. Cleo Bluthenthal with the California Community Foundation and strong support.
Do we have any opposition to the bill?
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. I'm Allison Adey on behalf of the Personal Insurance Federation of California. We're here today in respectful opposition to 1642 by Assemblymember Harabedian based on the March 2nd amendments. Over the last 2 months, we've been having conversations with the author and his team about soil and debris removal post-disaster and existing gaps in the data necessary to respond to the complicated issue of smoke claims. These components of the bill we are very, very much in support of. However, the recent amendments have substantially expanded the scope of the bill to delve into claims handling requirements in a way that curtails ongoing discussions with the Department of Insurance, establishes broad requirements that are not necessary in every situation, and will result in billions of dollars of additional claims expenses, exacerbating the current insurance crisis of both availability and affordability. Smoke claims have become a difficult issue over the past few years as the impacts of climate change cause larger and more urban-adjacent fires, particularly the LA fires of 2025. Given the complexity of smoke within insurance claims, CDI did convene a smoke claims task force in the summer of 2025. The question posed to this group was how to establish what is covered by an insurance policy for smoke damage following a wildfire, and what should be tested for, and who should do that testing. This task force is nearing the completion of the work. It is expected to release its report later this week. The new language usurps that ongoing work of CDI and subsequent policy negotiations by inappropriately granting overlapping and conflicting authority on claims handling to DTSC. For these reasons, we must oppose the bill as currently in print. Thank you.
Mark Segnan with the American Property Casualty Insurance Association, also in respectful opposition. The insurance industry supports science-based, uniform statewide standards to reduce inconsistencies in post-wildfire testing and clearance. We think issued standards can reduce claims disputes, improve profit predictability, and support safer reoccupancy outcomes. These standards can also protect wildfire survivors from scare tactics used by opportunists who assert the existence of rare chemicals that are actually not present. The July 2027 deadline may be unrealistic given the lack of existing standards and peer-reviewed science on the health impacts of toxic chemicals for all but a small number of compounds in residential settings. There are significant gaps in scientific research, which takes years of carefully planned study to properly evaluate and document. New standards must balance public health protection with practical feasibility, ensuring access to qualified environmental professionals. Standards should also reflect meaningful differences between homes, schools, and workplaces, acknowledging varied exposure pathways and regulatory frameworks. Collaboration across local, state, and federal agencies, including the Department of Insurance, will help avoid conflicts of duplicative requirements. The industry seeks cost-effective, validated testing methodologies to avoid unnecessary or unproven procedures that drive up recovery costs. Phased implementation is necessary to avoid capacity shortages in testing and remediation professionals statewide, and safe harbors for insurers acting in good faith under state-approved protocols would reduce litigation risk and accelerate recovery. In addition, the bill should limit insurers' payments to smoke remediation work actually performed at the home. As we've seen, unscrupulous attorneys submit smoke remediation estimates from suspect firms that have never performed any actual cleaning. The goal must be to provide appropriate protection for homeowners and their families without creating another opportunity for fraud, which will do nothing but drive up the cost of insurance. Thank you.
Thanks. Additional witnesses in opposition?
Good afternoon, Anna Buck on behalf of the California Association of Realtors here in respectful opposition to the bill in print. With that being said, we've had productive conversations with the author's office and his staff, and we look forward to continuing those conversations should the bill proceed today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Silvio Ferrari here on behalf of the California Building Industry Association. We actually put out a position of concern right now, have a number of issues we'd like to talk with the author's office about, have started those conversations, so we appreciate those and we'll continue to do those should it move forward. Thank you.
Hi, Yesenia Rubancho. I missed my opportunity to give support, but wanted to include Shamika Gaskins, Altadena wildfire survivor, in support.
Great, thanks. Coming back to committee members.
I'm just curious, first of all, Ms. Buck, if you don't mind, are you aligning your comments with the main witnesses, or do the realtors have different concerns? Because I imagine when you sell a house, you also want it to be safe and clean.
We do have concerns that the overly broad, though, like, been a lot of homes unaffected by wildfire.
Oh, okay. That's helpful. Thank you. So it sounds like the concerns are slightly different, and appreciate that the author is working with you on those. I just want to say that I think, and I have one additional question also, which is the way I understand the bill to work, DTSC will set forth standards on what the testing and the cleanliness is as scientists, But then ultimately, the Department of Insurance will continue to retain jurisdiction over matters of insurance, that you aren't touching what they're talking about around claims and the like.
Correct.
Okay. So, and I think that I'm frankly excited to support this bill today, Assembly member. As everybody here knows, I live in a very similar wildland urban interface to your community. And we mostly have been put onto the FAIR plan. So insurance availability isn't a thing for me yet, but hopefully one day it will be. And in the meantime, I think what is really critical is when people are paying these insurance premiums month after month, that when something like this happens, the insurance companies do right by the families. And I think the people best able to determine what is safe isn't the Department of Insurance, frankly. It is the scientists at DTSC. But I think it's important that, as the author clarified, that the vision of this is that the Department of Insurance will continue to oversee availability, affordability, all the things you are concerned about, but that we will have real scientists determining when it is safe for a family to move back into their home, because that is what everybody on this committee wants. I can say with certainty is that we all want families to be safe and healthy and living in California in a way that they want. And the tragedy that you and your neighbors went through, and then having to fight to get homes that are safe for children and seniors and people who have illnesses, should not be what you're going through. You made a deal with a company that you would pay them month in and month out, and when this happened, they would ensure that you had a safe and livable home. And we, as your representatives, have an obligation to make that real. And I think this is a huge step in making that real. And I know that if I were moving back into a home after a fire and I live in a very similar jurisdiction, I would want to know my babies are safe. I hope we can make that happen for you.
Assembly member.
Yes, I'd like to also thank the author for all of the work you've done in that area. We're talking about Eaton, and as we know, it's one of the largest communities of African Americans that been there for decades, and I have a lot of friends that live in that area. I've always been concerned about the rush to build, and I know that the community also wanted the rush to build. We heard a lot about we're not doing enough to rebuild, but I've always been worried about the soil and the contamination, and was it being done correctly? And if not, people are going to suffer from it. We won't know for 10, 20 years, whether it worked or not. So I am going to support this bill today because I believe that the scientists should tell us yes or no if it's safe. I really do worry about the safety of my friends and family up there, and so I thank you for this bill. Thank you.
Assembly member Pappen, then we'll go to the vice chair.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry for what you had to go through. This is not an easy road. So I thank you for being here and speaking in such a composed fashion about what you went through. And I thank you for the author, not only for bringing the bill, but for our discussions about the matter, because I think we all want to see that we have an impartial determination that, as the witness said, is based on science. And I do worry a little bit, as I mentioned, about the DTSC and their ability to be responsive and to come up with regulations. I was relieved that the asbestos part of it is pretty much determined by the feds, so you don't have to at least wait on those. That doesn't say much about the heavy metal part of it, which is alarming, to say the least. But I wonder if, and I just pose this, if the DTSC is not able to step up to the plate, if when we talked about determining rates and climate change, and a lot of the insurance industry wanted to do prospective modeling, right? And then it came down to, well, who was going to determine what the prospective modeling should be? And I'm wondering if the model of maybe some independent party, an academic from Caltech, whomever you would like to choose, if DTSC, because doesn't step up to the plate, because this is a very urgent matter, and I know that I don't need to tell you that. And I appreciate that the bill's been put forward because of maybe some partiality concerns. You seem like lovely people, but I get it. And that's okay by me. I fear bureaucratic agencies not giving these people immediate relief. So if that's the case, and I know that this author is clever enough to do what he needs to do to make urgency also be at the forefront. It's your district. I don't need to tell you that. But these bureaucratic agencies, you're not going to hear a lot of nice things from me about some of them. But nonetheless, that was kind of my feeling about this bill. But I'm happy to give you the second, and let's go forthwith.
Great, thanks. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here, everyone. So I'll address the technical side first. What other heavy metals of concern, you mentioned antimony, zinc, cadmium, what other metals of concern have you found in these fires?
So we have measured for every heavy metal.
Arsenic, mercury, how many? 17? CAM 17?
Yes, all of the CAM 17 and more.
Okay.
We detect all of them. The levels vary. The highest levels are for lead and the ones that I've listed. So arsenic, cadmium, chromium. But
have they been above STLC or TTLC? What are you using that protocol in mass spectrometry? What are you using?
So what you're asking is typically used for ash and soil, where we can take a very large amount of material and then digest it and measure the bulk concentration. Here we were wiping surfaces, so it is the entire content of the dust that has been collected. We collect a predetermined surface area, then we express the concentration as a surface area concentration, and we compare, when available, we compare to the limits that have been put forward by the EPA or other agencies.
And you use mass spec. What are you using?
Yes, we are using an ICP-MS, an inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometer. It is about 1,000 times more sensitive than the emission spectrometry that is typically being used. So we see everything.
Do you measure totals and then soluble?
We measure totals, not soluble.
Okay. Is it not a scientific fact that if you have a certain amount of total, typically a certain percentage of that could be soluble?
That is correct. But everything we measure is contained in very fine dust, which is easy to ingest and be exposed to.
Yeah, I guess where I'm going is I'm just curious as to the testing protocol because I think that assembly member that might be addressed. And then the other assembly member that brought up the fact that we're dealing with a bureaucratic agency, and you're asking for, in a sense here, we want them to respond quickly because these are dire straits, right? People want to get in their homes, so we want to respond quickly. How do you? So then, and I'll ask you: is the procedure to set guidelines and then use independent laboratories to take samples and do the study and then submit to the DTSC? What is the protocol?
So the bill, appreciate the questions, and they're well taken. So the bill would be emergency rulemaking on the standards and the remediation standards and the levels of contamination on an emergency basis for lead and asbestos, which we've talked about, are pretty scientifically set because of the EPA's work and thousands of scientific studies. Then there'll be a regular rulemaking process on the standards for the other heavy metals and contaminants. So a lot of what you're asking about is actually going to be determined by the experts at DTSC and OEHA. We're not determining that now, and this is precisely why we need the experts to come in and tell us what we need to do going forward so that folks in my community or your communities when this happens are safe. And so I can't really tell you exactly what the outcome is going to be on how that protocol is going to work. The rulemaking itself will come up with that protocol.
Do we have any, I know this is probably an obscure question, do we have any indication, and I'll address this to the insurance folks, of how this might impact? In other words, you have a regulatory agency that sets guidelines. Then you have independent laboratories that go out and take samples. And I don't know if they have to submit it to the DCSC. I don't know what that protocol all looks like. But how does that affect your business?
So our understanding of the way this is going to have overlapping agency problems is that DTSC, who is absolutely the correct entity to be determining what the safe thresholds are for these chemicals, and we're very supportive of that component because it is currently missing in the smoke claims data conversations, that can inform what should be tested, but the determination of what gets tested should be on a fire-by-fire basis because the contaminants carried in a smoke plume are different fire by fire. So by laying out all of the chemicals that need to be tested in every single scenario, it may not be appropriate in certain fires, and that is where we have concerns.
So I want to address that then to the chemical experts. When you were looking at this bill, are you saying that there's testing that you want DTSC to do, but what if further testing is needed to determine solubility?
I'm not sure we should be thinking about the solubility question. To clarify, the protocol we've used is the exact same one that professional hygienists use. They go with a wipe, they wipe
It's
the
a
same.
state protocol.
Yeah.
State protocol.
Yeah, so we are following the exact same protocol. The first part of your question, can you repeat it?
Well, I'm just wondering, let's just say, for example, you have an independent laboratory go out and test, and they come back and they test, and they run totals. But then all of a sudden, when you run a total, then a state says that if a certain percentage of that total is high, then a certain percentage could be soluble. Therefore, so
Can I? Yeah, I just want to bring us back to the bill. I appreciate the questions. To be clear, the IICRC and professional hygienists, this bill is not opining on the protocol for how they test. That's not what this bill does. There's nothing in here addressing that. This is about the standards for which contaminants you are testing and which levels, after the testing is done, need to be gotten to so that it's actually safe to move back in. So everything you're asking is incredibly relevant to the process itself, but it's not relevant to this bill because we are not incorporating those. We're not saying that the existing protocols need to be changed. Those protocols which are established by IICRC, the industry itself, are there. We are talking about the levels of contamination and what contaminants they should be testing for.
I guess I'm getting in the weeds a little bit. So my concern was that if they set the standards, then there wouldn't be additional testing that would infringe on the insurance folks.
I think that's fair. I think there's some confusion about what this bill does and doesn't do. And with all due respect to my friends, there isn't a single reference to an insurance claim, a smoke damage claim, what an insurance company has to do, et cetera. We are merely setting scientific standards as to what contaminants need to be tested, which levels are actually safe and not safe. And that shockingly hasn't been done. So I'm not sure why it hasn't been done. And I think because it hasn't been done, it does bleed over into the insurance claims process because there's massive confusion with one party saying this is true and the other party saying, no, it's not. And then there's no standard or level or rule of engagement to say one is right or the other. And so I think that's why this bill is so necessary.
Thanks for that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the dais? Seeing none, I have a couple in a minute, but I'll invite the author to close.
I respectfully ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. So this does have a aye reco from the chair. I want to thank you for bringing forward this important bill. Obviously, huge impacts on your district, as was so well stated, but really statewide. So appreciate your work on this. It does sound like there's broad agreement that we need standards to ensure that people can safely return to their communities. So we really do appreciate your push that these standards have to be health protective and based on science. But a couple other notes. Understand that as was noted, the California Department of Insurance is planning to release a report, and that also Assemblymember Gibson is working on a bill on this topic. Again, this is a cutting edge issue with major human health implications. So very glad to see that there are multiple voices at the table. Looking forward to seeing how the policy evolves. I know this author will continue to put in the work necessary. Again, this has an aye reco. We have a motion from Assemblymember Bauer-Cahan, second from Assemblymember Pappen. Let's go ahead and call the roll.
This is file item number 2, AB 1642, authored by Assemblymember Harabedian. The motion is due pass to the Committee on Appropriations. Connolly?
Aye.
Connolly, aye. Ellis? Ellis not voting. Bauer Cahan? Aye. Bauer Cahan, aye. Castillo? Not voting. Lee?
Aye.
Lee, aye. McKinner? Aye. McKinner, aye. Happen? Aye. Happen, aye.
5-2 vote. That matter passes. Thank you.